spoke about this earlier. So the Border Patrol, we had a big surge at the border leading up to the election because all of the polls suggested Hillary Clinton would win, and all Hillary Clinton talked about was the possibility of turning about 11 million illegals into United States citizens or giving them a path to citizenship. So the race was on. Let's get in the U.S. before the election, and then when she becomes president, this is what will happen. So we've talked about this border surge, but now it appears the Border Patrol may be kind of beefing things up a little bit. Eben Brown from Fox News Radio is our guest right now. Eben, how are you?
Good morning or good afternoon. Hi there.
Yeah, what is the situation down in Texas and along parts of the border right now?
Well, sure. The federal government border protection agencies, which includes Customs and Border Protection Customs and Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, are sending extra troops, if you will, agents, to certain stretches of the U.S.-Mexico border where there have been, over the past few weeks, a surge in the number of people trying to enter the United States illegally. This is mostly to be in a role of almost like a logistics role.
Okay.
Because as these people who are crossing the border are either caught or, believe it or not, turning themselves in to immigration officials saying, "Hey, I'm here," they have to be detained somewhere, and they actually need extra labor, if you know what I mean, to accommodate this, because there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, a lot of taking care of these people in the short term, because eventually they're going to be returned to their home countries, and that's really what seems to be the big confusion here. We've seen surges of illegal immigration really over the past couple of years. In fact, I think most people would remember in 2014 a surprising number, almost like 100,000 unaccompanied children showing up at the Texas border, essentially being dumped on the banks of the Rio Grande by drug cartels who had, quote-unquote, promised to transport children from Central America, making some sort of promise of safety to their parents and saying, "Oh, we'll get your kids to America where they can go." Turns out a lot of them were being treated as drug mules and abused along the way and whatnot.
Right.
This time around, we're seeing a lot of families. We're seeing unaccompanied children, not to the numbers of 100,000, but also single adults. But many people under the impression that they can come and they would be welcomed in, and that's really not the case, and it's not going to be the case. And there's a lot of misinformation that goes on in Central American countries, mostly because government doesn't function well there. Sometimes the ruling power in a neighborhood is a drug cartel or a gang, and they nefariously convince people to essentially sell them their children. Hey, well, you give us money, we'll get safe passage to your kids into the United States, when in fact they're using these kids for human trafficking,
right,
for drug muling. It's a very scary humanitarian situation.
I'm sure it is. So the Border Patrol had, I'm sure, had to put up with accusations that they were sort of downplaying some of those problems along the border leading up to the election. But I'm guessing if we're seeing more agents there this quickly, this was something that had been planned for a while, right?
Well, they have the ability to obviously send more personnel to problem areas when such need arises, and that need has arisen. One detention center in South Texas has, I think, somewhat along the lines of an extra 10,000 people than they normally would have. And again, a lot of these people are families, mothers with children that make it to the border, that have either sacrificed a lot in terms of their personal safety of their kids, economically, money-wise, to get there, under the impression that they're going to be essentially allowed in for their own safety. And they get there and they walk up to an immigrations official or an agent, a law enforcement agent, say, "Hey, I finally made it." And the law enforcement agent has to say, "Okay, I've got to put you in detention now, figure out who you are. And, obviously if you have immediate needs regarding health or safety or whatnot, we'll help you. But you have to go back home eventually, and you'll be going home quicker than you think."
Eben Brown, have you spoken to anybody from the Border Patrol?
No, our Fox News team has been doing it.
Yeah, I just wondered if they had made any comments about this election and what they need that they haven't been getting.
Well, look, they're not necessarily going to criticize their current boss, which is the current administration,
Right.
and they're tasked with doing a certain job, and they'll do it as they are told to do it. Secretary Jay Johnson, the Homeland Security Secretary, has already gone on record saying these people aren't staying here. We're going to care for them in this immediate moment, figure out what the problem is, and we're going to send them back. And we have to continue our efforts overseas, meaning in Central America, to dissuade people from trying to make this dangerous trip to the U.S. under some false promise or false idea that they're going to just simply be allowed in. It's not the case.
Get to stay. Very good. Fox News Radio's Eben Brown, thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Yep, take care. Thank you.